then please have a go at recording this.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I
Hi.
appreciate some of you aren't able or don't want to have your cameras on, so I'll just wait a moment in case anybody else joins us.
Yeah, I think there might be another one or two people.
Would any of you be willing to do the recording for Claire at all?
I'm doing the recording at the moment.
Oh, great. Thanks, Tanya.
That's all right.
My mum nearly called me Tanya, she told me once.
It's actually Tanya. There's two different ways to say it. There's Tanya and Tanya, but everyone always says my name is Tanya. But no, it's actually Tanya.
Try and get that right then, thanks.
Oh, it's all right. Don't worry. I didn't mean that in a rude way.
No, I know you didn't. Look, I've got a Buddhist name. You can imagine some of the things I get. My favourite was Sheila Batty. That was my personal favourite mishearing of my name. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I know.
Hello, Celia. Hello, Nadia. I'm going to make a start. I think we might be. So lovely to be in your group. Thank you for having me for the whole thing. We're being recorded, so that's taken care of. So as you might remember from the earlier introduction, my name's Srivati and I'm connected with London Buddhist Centre. I'm an ordained Buddhist, I think I said already, not monastic, but I also do a lot of school visits along with a small team at the Buddhist Centre. So we go into schools, at least we used to before the lockdown, and also we welcome visitors to the centre. We also do mindfulness for schools as well. So the theme that Claire gave me to share with you was a favourite scripture or story and what it teaches me about how to live as a Buddhist. And I was a bit spoilt for choice with stories in Buddhism. These are the ones I've decided not to tell you, just to wet your whistle. The story of Angulimala, who was in effect a serial killer, a bandit. Some of you might have come across that story. It catches people's interest because he not only murders people but cuts off little fingers to make a necklace. Does that ring bells with anybody? I know it's gory, but the reason it's a good story is because he understands, by virtue of the Buddha meeting him, he understands what he's been doing. And even better, he decides to stop because he realizes that his actions have consequences. So it's a good illustration of change is going to happen anyway, but we could make change a positive one, even in that sort of extremity. Another story is Kisa Gotami. I might tap these names in for you in the... is it showing up already when I sent it before? Angulimala and Kisa Gotami. I'll do it again in case it was just for my earlier group. Kisa Gotami is the story of the mustard seed, which is basically about death. It's a very tragic story because she loses her young baby. Someone kindly suggests that the Buddha might be able to help her because he sees that she's lost her senses really out of grief. So rather than just telling her straight, your baby is dead, he suggests that she goes and finds a mustard seed, but it has to come from a house where no one's died. And of course, every time she goes somewhere, there's nowhere where there hasn't been a death in the family. So you'd have to choose which age group that was appropriate for, of course, and depending on what's going on for your pupils. But it's a useful story to have. So I'm not going to tell you that one either. The one I decided to go for, because of the value it has for me, is what's called the rose apple tree incident. Rose apple tree. And it's not very well known. So I thought I'd share that with you. So this actually predates when the Buddha became enlightened. So the man who became the Buddha, and apologies for the things I say that you already know, was called Siddhartha Gautama. And his father was a kind of chief or a leader, a kind of a king. And he protected Siddhartha from seeing suffering. So he not only had a privileged upbringing, he had a very protected upbringing. But as some of you will know, he got restless as a young adult and in the end left the palace. And he was seeking truth. He wanted to understand why people suffer. He'd witnessed old age, sickness and death. And one of the things that he tried was asceticism. And this was the main practice he adopted. This asceticism and Buddhism are not the same thing. Asceticism, as you might know, is where, and people still practice it in India and elsewhere today, that the belief is if you get rid of everything that's too comfortable, too distracting, it'll allow your mind to get really focused, very clear, and then you can understand the nature of reality. It involves a lot of fasting, apart from anything else. So he became very good at this, Siddhartha. He fasted so much, this is over a number of years, that he was at the point of death, virtually. And he realized this wasn't getting him towards his goal of liberation of his mind so that he could be a benefit to other people. And he decided he'd start to eat again. But at this point, he had a memory. He remembered a time when he was a child, maybe 6, 7 years old, maybe older, where his father was ploughing a field. Now, his dad wasn't a farmer, but it would have been some kind of special ceremony, perhaps for the sowing of seeds, very important in the society. Siddhartha had been placed in the shade of a rose apple tree, was watching his father. And I imagine that it was something about the repetitive action of these ox, perhaps pulling this plough up and down the field. The young Siddhartha became very absorbed, concentrated. And there was something beautiful and relaxing about this state of mind that the older Siddhartha, who's giving up his asceticism, is thinking, I've been struggling so hard, there must be another way, maybe relaxing, like happened for me when I was a boy. Maybe that's the key to my way forward. So that's what he decides to do, is just settle gently, kindly, not willfully, into meditation and see what happened. And apparently a local village girl saw him almost wasted away sitting there, and she offered him some rice milk. That was his first food for a very long time. And somebody else offered him some grass to sit on. So with those conditions of food in his belly, comfortable place to sit, an intention to relax his mind, he became very absorbed again. And long story short, it was from that place that he gained the liberation he'd been looking for. So what does liberation mean? Freedom from our own limitations, full realization of our potential. So a very nice summary you might use or could use with your pupils, for example, is that enlightenment is complete kindness or compassion, complete wisdom or understanding or clarity of mind, not necessarily the same thing as knowledge, and also complete free flowing energy in pursuit of the good, you might say. So energy as in it's available for what you need to fulfill your aspirations. So I love that story, the rose apple tree section of that story, because it reminds me of things I need to be reminded of. One is, if I meditate, it will help me have the good conditions for what I'm looking for spiritually, because I'll be calmer, more focused, and I can practice developing kindness and other positive qualities. And I can get absorbed. I don't always, sometimes I meditate and I'm just sitting there planning, even though I've been meditating for over 30 years. So nonetheless, having a meditation practice is very supportive of accessing the best in me from a calmer, more focused place. But it also, the story reminds me about balanced effort. What Siddhartha discovered was something in the middle. Buddhism's often called the middle way. So he'd known all this luxury and privilege in his young life, in the so-called palace or wherever they were living. And he'd also tried all the hardships and stringencies of asceticism, and neither of them had given him what he was looking for. So something about balancing my effort, I need to be reminded of that. Sometimes I need to try hard in my spiritual practice and in life. Sometimes I need to just back off, step back, take a breath. And mostly for me, that at the moment is what's most helpful. But sometimes I do need to apply myself. And then lastly, that little story reminds me about the value of being engaged with something. I mean, we know it for ourselves. We see it with the young people we teach. If they're not engaged, it's very hard for them to be receptive to however good your teaching is. That's true, isn't it? We want to help people be engaged, but we want ourselves to be engaged with what we're doing as well. Sometimes we don't want to go to work. Those days don't always go as well as the ones where we found our connection with why we do what we do. So, yes, I don't know if that has value to you, but that was the story I thought I'd share with you. So feel free now to unmute yourself if you either want to ask me about that story or anything I've said, or anything else that you've got a question to do with either my practice or teaching Buddhism in school. Avril.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Thank you. I didn't know that story before. I'm not a practicing teacher. I'm retired, so you know, it's more important that the others get a chance to ask things directly to their teaching. But thank you. I found that very interesting.
Yes, thank you. When you say those liberation, you said 4 things. I've only got 3 I've wrote down. It was kindness, wisdom and energy. What was the other one?
That was 3. Did I say 4 by mistake?
Oh, sorry. I thought it was 4. I've got the 3 then. Thank you. Thank you. No, it's very, very good because I don't know anything about Buddhism, so it's been really good. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad, because I know it's not an easy subject to teach. And I say that from the point of view of being a practitioner, because you've got to make it accessible. And one of the things I love about Buddhism is that I've always found it extremely practical. One of the things that attracted me to it was I'm being given really sensible, down-to-earth advice of how to live my life well, not just for myself, but for the benefit of others. And then there's all the other stuff that is a bit more mysterious or ritual, you know, like you've heard the word puja, perhaps, P-U-J-A, you get it in Hinduism as well. That's Buddhist worship, so you have worship in Buddhism. I've got my Buddhist shrine behind me as a backdrop. Quite handy where my desk is in my room, so that's been so Buddhists do worship, even though we don't have a belief in a creator God. And I've often been questioned about that. How can you worship somebody who's not a God? And I try and explain it's because of the amazing nature of enlightenment. If someone's a Buddha, a fully awakened one, Buddha means awakened one, then they're worth worshipping, because if you're completely kind, completely wise and completely calm, then you're not like probably anybody else I know. And I'd like a little bit of that at least. And I have a lot of respect and appreciation for everything that the Buddha taught. It certainly made a big difference to my life. But yes, as a little shorthand, those 3 aspects are quite a good way in, because you've got the emotional, the intellectual, mental, and the energetic, kind, wise, calm. But it's unlimited. That would be the key thing to get across to your pupils. And then you can ask them, as I often do in our school visits, do you think that's possible, given what you know about being a human being? And it's quite interesting how the classes divide. It's often in thirds, actually. About a third say, yeah, I think that's possible. And another third of it, no. Nobody could ever be that calm. And other people say they don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, Tanya.
I just wanted to know, how would you get kids to kind of, you know, when you get them to try to meditate just so they know kind of how it feels, what would be your recommendations? Say if we were doing a lesson on meditation, is there any resources that you know of that would help? Or
if you I'm just going to put our website up. It's not on the website, but our email address is admin@bodhitree.org.uk. I might be able to send you something, but what I just recommend in the meantime is just ask them to sit quietly and say that you're just going to pay attention to one thing, and then invite them to be aware of how they're sitting. Can they feel what their feet are doing? They might not realize that their feet are fidgeting. And then when you've got them sort of aware of their bodies, ask them just to notice that they're breathing. If they're very young, get them to put one hand on their chest and one on their belly. And tell them you're not asking them to do weird or special breathing, because otherwise they'll start hyperventilating if they're young. Just say, notice where you feel it in your body, and just ask them to pay attention to breathing in and breathing out. You could also look up 3-minute, depending on what age they are, breathing space. There's an adult breathing space. We do a children's version of it.
okay, thank you.
just do something for a minute with them and see, then ask them how they found it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure, there's probably a minute or two left if you want to squeeze in the one last question. Yeah, I mean, obviously, sorry, go on.
Is there stories that we could adapt for early years?
Yes,
Because you said about the stories. Is there stories that we could adapt quite easily for the early years?
yes, I don't know how available this is online. We used to have a sister organisation based in Manchester called Clear Vision Trust, and they produced award-winning resources for teaching of Buddhism. And sadly, as a result of economics over the last few years, they can't operate anymore. But they did produce books, including a story called Siddhartha and the Swan. That's very nice for younger children. Also, the Monkey King. That's been adapted because in the original version of the Monkey King actually gives his life to save his other monkeys, but in the children's version, he just he doesn't die.
Okay.
Protect their sensibilities.
Yeah.
So I don't know, because that's only recently happened that Clear Vision have folded. I'm not sure what's available online now, but do a search in case. I mean, I've got the books they used to have, but I don't suppose they're selling them anymore.
Okay then. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think for those of you, who are doing the teaching of Buddhism, when it comes up for you in your schemes of work and everything, if you can include a visit, it doesn't have to be with us, obviously, but I think for people to meet a Buddhist who's talking about what it means in their life can be so helpful. Obviously, as you'll have gathered from the other 2-3 Buddhists that are here today, we're not all the same. We don't all practice in the same traditions. There'll be a lot we hold in common. But there'll be some things that'll have a different style or a different emphasis. And that can be very helpful for children because, like us adults, we want a good, clear, yes, no, black, white answer. And it's quite helpful to think, oh, no, it's not as simple as that.
Mm.
So, yeah. The emphasis on kindness is key.
Yes. Yeah. So stories on those sort of things would be nice.
Yep. So I can see that we've got just a few seconds left.
Yeah.
Vegetarianism is a good theme to include if you're looking at Buddhism because it's a direct practice of that kindness.
Okay.
But I wish you well with it all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice.
Fantastic. Thank you.